Welcome to another GCN Tech Clinic. This week, I answer your questions on persistent punctures, through axles, and rebuilding wheels. Don't forget, if you want to have your question answered here on the channel, drop it in the comments box below and use the hashtag AskGCNTech. And in fact, you can throw that onto any of our social media platforms. Right, first question is from Manis Deshpande. He has a Cannondale CAD 12 with 105 with Fulcrum Racing Sport wheel and hub. He wants to buy a PowerTap G3 hub and build it into his current wheels. He wants to know, is this possible? Well, yes, assuming the hub and the rim have the same amount of holes, imagine they're 24, then yeah, you could go and do that and get your local shop or mechanic to build it up for you. But I would actually recommend going out and sourcing a brand new rim, all the spokes and the nipples for it as well, because then you'll have a completely bespoke, custom built wheel that was designed specifically for that PowerTap. The other reason for doing this is inevitably during the lifespan of a power meter, it will need to be sent off for a service or some sort of maintenance work. And if you don't have a spare wheel, then you'll be stuck without a bike to ride for however long that takes. Could be a week or it could be up to a month, for depending on which manufacturer or service center you send it to. So having that spare wheel will always be invaluable. If you have spare wheels already, I still recommend actually going out and buying a new rim, because I just think it's better to have something that was built purpose-built. Good luck and enjoy your new wheel. Paul Hatcher writes in with, I have recently acquired a frame with 12mm through axles. Why are through axles using a right-hand thread? Wouldn't a left-hand thread be safer? As should the through axle become loose, the rotation of the wheel would likely be to tighten the through axle rather than loosen it. Well, Paul, I think that's a really good question. Certainly as we move forward into this new era of bikes, which are predominantly going to be coming with through axles. However, take your through axle, stick it through the hub of your rear wheel and spin the wheel, and you'll notice that assuming your bearings are in good condition, there isn't actually all that much drag on the axle. That, coupled with the fact that you actually need to do them up reasonably tight in the frame, means that there is really very little risk of them ever coming undone, thus negating the need and complication for a left-hand threaded axle. Richard Isaacson is asking, I've recently been wondering how often I should be cleaning and lubricating my chain whilst I've got my bike set up on the indoor trainer. It's obviously not gathering much gunk, but I'd still like to know, should I be applying lube frequently? Well, the question is, what are the conditions like where you're using your bike? Is it quite a damp area, or are you using air conditioning or big fans which are perhaps drying out your chain? I think the best way to go with this one is to play it by ear, have a little feel of your chain before you use it, and then listen out to the noises it's making as you're warming up. If it sounds a little bit dry or it isn't sounding sweet and smooth like it should be, then add a little bit of lube in between all of the rollers, and this will help keep it in top condition for you. John Mack up next. Hi guys, quick question. Is there a way to repair cuts to tyres? My commuter's front tyre has a decent nick in it, and I'm worried something else sharp may find its way in and give me a puncture. The tyre has loads of life left in it, so I want to save it. I've tried super glue and Gorilla Glue, but they both come out over the course of a ride. Well, John, there's no need to worry, because there are a few tricks you can use. And the first thing I would start with would be trying a tyre boot, a purpose-made slither of rubber that was designed for patching holes in tyres. Stick this on with some vulcanizing glue, that's if it's not self-adhesive. Vulcanizing glue works because it has elasticity built into it, and it will expand as you pump up your tyres and as they deflate. If that doesn't work though, you could try a piece of an old inner tube. I'd probably double it over and then stick that in place again with the same glue as I mentioned before. If that's not good enough, then try a piece of an old tyre. So cut out a thin part of the old tyre, maybe where the centre tread was, where you've ridden it the most, and insert that up into the tyre and glue that in place as well. Remember though, when you do this, to leave a good overlap so that you're covering the hole completely, as the tyre is more likely to expand. That split is likely to grow over time, so make sure you give yourself a good bit of coverage. Henry H is up next with a question about through axles. I have 3 different bikes with through axles, and all of them have different size rear wheel axles. Is it possible to convert the axles so I can use the wheels on different bikes, or are the wheels going to be bike specific? Well, it's a brilliant question, because as we mentioned before, through axles are becoming more and more prevalent across more and more bikes. And the answer is yes, there are adapters available, but not every combination is going to be out there. So for example, you might have a 135mm rear wheel and you want to put that into a 142mm frame. That will be possible with an axle spacer or a new end cap on your hub. But if you have a 142 hub and you want to squeeze that into a 135 frame, that might be difficult and you may find that it's not going to work for your combination. So with a bit of Googling and a bit of time invested online, you should be able to find what combinations you have. However, at the end of the day, you may also find that only 2 of your 3 wheels fit in the other bikes. Good luck and let us know how you get on. Next up is Kayla Gonzalez, who is having problems with punctures. Riding their 1982 Bonotto, they're having 1 puncture a week pretty much on the back wheel. Now, they've checked the tyres, they've checked the rims, the brakes, and they haven't found a reason for it happening. They keep the pressures controlled at 90 to 100 PSI and they weigh around 100 kilos. Is there something they're missing? Well, the first place I would check is your rim. So you say you check the rim and the tyre, but what I mean is check the rim tape. So if it's that hard plasticky rim tape, really have a good dig down where the nipples are because you may be missing a few cracks which could be snagging your tube. If that doesn't work, then I would try adding an extra 10 PSI to the tyre pressures because with 100 kilos on top of the tyres, an extra 10 PSI could really make a small difference for you. If that doesn't work out, then the next consideration is to replace the tyre because once a tyre has punctured and you've run it even briefly flat for a few meters, then it's kind of weakened the outer structure of that tyre and you will find that it is going to be more susceptible to punctures. But if you don't want to replace your tyre or you can't replace your tyre, then picking up a protective rim strip is a good next port of call. You can pick these up really cheap just for a few dollars and they can be really quite effective in keeping any small sharp objects out of your tyre. And then the next failsafe I would recommend is actually filling your inner tube with some sealant. Not filling it up, but around 50 to 60 millilitres of sealant can be really quite effective. It won't be quite as good as a true tubeless setup, but it will still work really quite well. Good luck with that. Paul Ferguson up next with, can I get some tips on how the Shimano Trim function works? I have a new bike that's only done around 60 kilometers and I'm getting a bit of chain rub on the front derailleur when in the large ring and the smaller rear cogs. I keep reading about trim, but just want to understand how it actually works. Thank you. Well, Paul, trim is actually as you shift the front derailleur across, you can use it in stages. So there's the ratchet mechanism inside of the shifters, and to trim would be to go 1 click or 2 clicks or 3 clicks as opposed to just all the way up onto the big ring. I think the question you might be asking though is how to actually adjust your front mech a little, because as you have a new bike and now that things have settled in, the barrel ends have gone onto the outer cables and any excess play in the new cables has gone, and you know they've stretched that little tiny bit. It's all very precision work, so you're going to want to take up any slack. And what you want to use is the barrel adjusters, and these will either be in the cable somewhere, on the outer cable, or on the down tube or something like that. And what you want to do as you're stood over the bike is just give them a few short turns anti-clockwise, probably not even a full turn to be honest, and this will just take up that little bit of slack that you might be finding in your cable, meaning that when you're on the big ring and further down the block, you're no longer getting that rubbing. Gulf City Nicholas Dancer. I want to swap my rear mech out to a Shimano Deore one without changing the gearing. It's an 8-speed block. Will it work? Well, yes, simply, as it's a Shimano part, there is no foreseeable reason why the rear mech won't just do what the front shifter is telling it to do. They're indexed to the cassette, not to the rear mech, so you should have no problems whatsoever. The penultimate question comes in from Lod Vason. Hi guys, this coming July I'm going to France riding my bike in the mountains. I'm considering using my full carbon wheels because they're light. I also have some Mavic Carbon wheels with an aluminium braking surface, and I have a set of full alloy Fulcrum wheels. Which set should he take to France because of the heat build up during a long descent? I'm a good descender, but I'm not a pro. Well, Lod, I would honestly take the set of wheels that you think you're going to enjoy riding on the most. If it's your lightweight carbon wheels riding up the mountains, then I would absolutely encourage you to take those. I would have no concerns about them overcooking, as it were, on the descents because you're not going to be racing the cars down the mountains. You really shouldn't be anyway. And the heat built up on the entry into the corner will soon be gone by the time you're halfway down the next straight. If you're worried about the weather and you wanted to have a better braking surface in wet weather, for example, then I would take the aluminium wheels. But yeah, it comes back to taking the set of wheels that you're going to enjoy riding the most. JH Jansen with the final question of the week. A few days ago on his first ride outside this year, he experienced a chain snap whilst accelerating out of the corner. Managed not to crash, luckily. The chain was a 105 chain and still in good condition, but it snapped on the plates. He's heard this is quite unusual. What is our opinion? Well, yeah, this really is quite rare. In the past, you maybe had the joining pins that would snap and it wasn't that unheard of for a chain to snap, but these days they're much more sturdy than they used to be, and it in fact is really quite rare for a chain to snap. You also maybe heard of manufacturer defaults in the past and chain recalls and things like that, but after a good search online, we cannot find any evidence of those happening anymore. So it comes down to installation and maintenance, but as you said the chain was in good condition, I find it hard to believe either of these are the cause, so you're left with a freak incident. Luckily, it's a very rare thing to happen and you're unlikely to experience it again. That's it for this week. So if you want to get your question answered on the GCN Tech Clinic, make sure you use the hashtag AskGCNTech, and you can leave that on any of our social media platforms. For another tech related video, why not check this one out over here.